My name is Maisie Black, 29 years old, Captain, United States Marine Corps. I've led convoys through combat zones without flinching, but nothing prepared me for the ambush that came at my own family's dinner table. They called me half the woman my sister was, until I showed them $84,000 in receipts. What would you do if your own family tried to erase your sacrifice? Drop your thoughts below, and hit subscribe for more true stories of quiet strength and earned respect. By 29, I'd led convoys across hostile terrain, balanced budgets that could sink small companies, and learned that real command begins with silence. But none of that mattered tonight. In this house, my childhood home in San Diego, rank was assigned by pedigree, not performance. The air inside smelled faintly of citrus polish and candle wax. My mother believed appearances were a language, and this dinner was fluent. Crystal stemware caught the light like captured stars. The table gleamed under a pendant chandelier. Every chair had been precisely angled, none by accident. I sat halfway down the mahogany length, posture straight from Quantico habit, knees aligned, napkin squared. Across from me, my sister Sam laughed at something our father said. She wore confidence like a tailored suit. Beside her, my mother Elaine observed the room with the clinical detachment of a commanding officer reviewing a parade. Only her inspection wasn't for readiness. It was for status. When the first toast came, the hierarchy crystallized. My father Charles tapped his glass. Conversation halted with practiced obedience. "A toast," he announced, baritone filling the room. "To Sam, youngest partner in firm history. Your dedication honors this family." Chairs shifted, polite applause rippled. I joined in, my clap measured, steady. In the Corps, you celebrate the mission's success, not who claimed it. Sam's smile was modest, rehearsed. She looked every bit the star my parents had groomed. I wanted to be proud, and I was. But pride carried an edge. In their eyes, her courtroom victories outweighed every deployment ribbon I'd earned. When the chatter resumed, I tried a contribution. Something light, supportive. "She always had incredible leadership skills," I offered. Back in college, she could organize any project, motivate anyone. My voice landed, then vanished. Absorbed by crystal and linen. No one acknowledged it. The conversation flowed around me, seamless, like a river parting around a stone. Mom glided past with a serving bowl. "Maisie, pass the potatoes," she said, not pausing, not looking. Her gaze fixed on an ant across the table. I complied wordlessly. Order received, executed, disregarded. Later, I made another attempt. Work talk, safe terrain. "We just implemented a new logistics system in theater," I began. "It's increasing efficiency by 20%. "Oh, that's interesting, dear." Elaine's tone could have frozen seawater. She pivoted instantly to our aunt. "Did you hear, Carol? Sam's firm is already considering her for senior partnership." Laughter, admiration, another swell of praise. My words evaporated again. I watched the scene the way I'd once studied convoy footage, analyzing routes, noting choke points. Here, affection was a finite resource. It flowed toward the most decorated target. Sam earned hers in billable hours and prestige. Mine came wrapped in government pay stubs no one cared to read. Through the window, the last smear of Pacific twilight bled into the horizon. I drew a slow breath, counting beats. In 4, hold 4, out 4. Combat breathing for a dinner table. Dad refilled glasses, his ring tapping the bottle. "Maisie," he said without looking up. "How long are you stationed here this time? Maybe you'll finally put down roots." "Permanent orders are rare, sir," I replied evenly. "The mission decides the timeline." He chuckled, already turned toward Sam again. "Hear that? Always the soldier." The title should have carried respect. Instead, it sounded like a nickname for stubbornness. Under the table, my phone vibrated once. A scheduled alert I'd forgotten to disable. A quiet reminder. Navy Federal Credit Union. Monthly transfer confirmed. I silenced it quickly, but the irony lingered. They would never know that my so-called game of playing soldier had paid the mortgage on this polished house 4 years running. As dessert plates appeared and conversation swelled, I studied the family like an unfamiliar unit. Clear command, rigid hierarchy, zero situational awareness. My training told me to observe before acting, to identify the power map. Tonight, I finally saw it. Elaine, commanding presence, armed with social precision. Charles, second in command, loud but brittle. Sam, favored successor, radiant under constant praise. Me, quiet professional, tolerated for optics. Every mission begins with reconnaissance. Mine started here, beneath warm light and cold smiles, among people who measured worth in trophies and forgot that sometimes the quiet one at the table keeps the entire house from collapsing. And as the laughter rose again, I realized something vital. In this family, respect wasn't granted by service. It was bought. And tonight, the buyer they'd ignored was sitting right here. Dinner had stretched past its natural life, the way some patrols do, long after the objective is complete. Yet no one dares stand first. The dishes changed, the tone did not. My family floated between safe topics: real estate, luxury cruises, golf handicaps, while I drifted like a ghost among the living. The clink of silverware filled the pauses where genuine conversation should have lived. Candlelight shimmered across the rim of my untouched wineglass. I'd fought through dust storms in Helmand Province with more clarity than this fog of civility. From the head of the table, Charles directed traffic. "Sam, tell them about the Albright case," he said. She obliged, delivering a modest retelling polished by experience. Applause followed. Elaine dabbed the corner of her lip like she was presiding over a gala. Then came the subtle digs, low-yield explosives wrapped in niceties. "You've always had such drive," Aunt Carol said to Sam, "and confidence too. Not everyone's built for leadership." Her eyes flicked toward me as if by accident. I smiled faintly. The kind you wear under fire. Controlled, minimal. In uniform, silence is discipline. In this room, it was misread as defeat. I shifted in my seat, the dress fabric whispering against the chair. The posture that once commanded platoons now felt like armor in enemy territory. Elaine refilled a guest's glass before turning her attention to me. "So, Maisie," she began, voice dripping polite curiosity. "Still, over there?" "Stateside," I said. "Camp Pendleton, Training and Logistics Command." "Oh," she replied with soft disappointment, as if I'd failed to meet an invisible standard. "Well, that must be stable." Stable. In her lexicon, stability meant boredom, irrelevance. I'd led operations moving millions in material. She made it sound like shelving groceries. Charles jumped in, chuckling. "Your mother worries, you know. She just wants to see you settled, maybe in something less hazardous." Sam laughed gently. "Yeah, Maisie, imagine if you took that attention to detail and applied it to, like, consulting or project management." Her tone was innocent. The words were not. Around us, guests nodded as if a sensible career pivot were long overdue. I felt the heat crawl up my neck, but my voice stayed calm. "Some of us are where we're meant to be." The line landed flat, too composed for their frequency. Dessert arrived. A tiramisu so ornate it looked like it required planning clearance. The sweetness in the air couldn't mask the sour edge settling in my gut. Elaine leaned back, surveying the table with the satisfaction of a hostess who believed she'd achieved perfection. Then she turned that gaze on me. I knew that look. The assessment before a reprimand. "You know, dear," she said, her tone bright for the audience. "If you'd focused on a real career instead of this, what do you call it, playing soldier thing, you might have something to show for yourself by now." Her words sliced cleaner than any blade. Around the table, forks paused midair. Even Sam froze, eyes flicking toward me, uncertainty softening her face. Playing soldier. In 3 syllables, she'd reduced deployments, leadership, and sacrifice into a child's pastime. I set my fork down, aligning it perfectly with the plate's edge. "I serve my country, ma'am," I said. My voice carried the calm precision I used in field briefings, measured, factual, unshaken. Elaine sighed theatrically, patting my hand. "Service is noble, of course, but it isn't success, is it?" She gestured toward Sam, radiant under the chandelier. "It doesn't build anything." Laughter flickered, uncertain, then died. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was charged, like air before a detonation. And then came the kill shot. "Honestly, Maisie," she said, her smile thin as wire, "you're not half the woman your sister is." My breath caught, not from shock, but from recognition. This was it. The open strike, the moment training either holds or fails. I inhaled slowly through my nose, exhaled through parted lips, box breathing. In for 4. Hold, out for 4. Hold. All around me, sound receded. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of a distant clock, the faint murmur of embarrassed guests. In another life, I'd faced hostile fire with less precision. But here, surrounded by linen and laughter, I understood what true discipline meant. Not drawing your weapon when provoked. They thought they'd broken me. They didn't see the switch flip behind my eyes. The daughter had been hit. The officer had just taken command. And the mission, long postponed, was about to begin. The room blurred around me, laughter thinning into a low hum. I'd been called lesser before, by drill instructors testing resolve, by officers gauging backbone, but never by someone who shared my name. Still, rage was a luxury I couldn't afford. A Marine learns to detach, to gather intel before returning fire. So I reached inward, back through time, to the moment this battle truly began. It was 2 a.m. at Camp Pendleton, and the barracks were silent except for the distant buzz of a vending machine. I sat cross-legged on the floor, my M4 broken down on a towel before me. Gun oil scented the air. Sharp, metallic, grounding. Routine maintenance after a week in the field. Each part cleaned, inspected, reassembled, order restored. Then my phone vibrated against the steel footlocker. "Mom," the screen read. A call at 200 was never good news, I answered, bracing for impact. Her voice came fractured between sobs. "They're taking the house, Maisie. The bank. The business. It's all gone." Sleep fell away in an instant. Taking the house. The phrase hit harder than any mortar blast. I pictured the stucco walls, the pencil marks on the kitchen doorframe charting our childhood heights. "How much?" I asked. $2,500, just to hold them off." Her voice trembled. "We'll pay you back as soon as things turn around. Just this once, sweetheart. Please." Just this once. 4 words that would cost me 4 years. By dawn, I'd wired the money through Navy Federal Credit Union. My next patrol briefing found me running on caffeine and a quiet sense of duty. The crisis, I told myself, was contained. It wasn't. The following month, another call. This time, property taxes. An oversight. Then a plumbing disaster, then car trouble, then a medical bill that vanished once paid. Each request arrived wrapped in the same panic, the same assurances. I responded like I'd been trained, rapidly, decisively. The Marine Corps teaches problem solving. They never mentioned emotional extortion disguised as family emergencies. By month 6, exhaustion replaced empathy. My evenings became accounting drills, calculator, pay stub, wire form. I stared at my laptop, the glow bleaching color from my hands, and made a logistical decision. I automated the transfer. An allotment pulled directly from my paycheck to their account. Streamlined, efficient, bleeding but tidy. Each payday, the deduction marched out without complaint, and life adjusted accordingly. I passed on advanced courses, skipped holidays, postponed the master's in supply chain management I'd dreamed of. Junior Marines under my command bought starter homes with VA loans. I ate ramen in the barracks and told myself I preferred simplicity. Still, I documented everything. Habit drilled from years of requisition forms and supply audits. One night I opened Excel and labeled 2 columns. A, funds transferred to family. B, objectives canceled. Row by row, the ledger filled. A1, $2,500, foreclosure prevention. B1, postpone leave. A2, $200, property tax shortfall. B2, cancel course registration. The list grew until it looked like an operations loss report. I didn't see generosity. I saw attrition. The breaking point arrived in a place as ordinary as a bass bar. Friday night. Neon flicker. Country music leaking from bad speakers. Gunnery Sergeant Jessica Reyes, 15 years in, voice like gravel, caught me staring into a beer I hadn't touched. "Spill it, Captain," she ordered. For once I did. The entire story, from foreclosure to fatigue, poured out between us. She listened without a word, then leaned in, elbows on the table. "With all due respect," she said, "you can't lie on a grenade to keep other people warm." The sentence landed like doctrine. I heard it again while we sat later in her office, combing through my bank statements line by line. When the calculator total appeared, the number glared back, $84,000. I felt my throat tighten, not from debt, but from realization. How many future missions I'd aborted for theirs. Reyes folded her arms. "That's not family support, Captain. That's a business model, and you're the sole investor." That night, I went back to my quarters, opened the payroll portal, and hovered over the cancel allotment button. My cursor shook. One click and the supply line would close. I inhaled once, steady, exhaled, then clicked. A confirmation box appeared. "Are you sure you want to terminate this transfer?" "Yes." "Confirm." The next morning, the California sun spilled across the parade ground. For the first time in 4 years, my pay would be my own. I stood by the window, watching recruits march in formation, their cadence sharp and sure. Freedom has a sound, I realized. Its footsteps moving in your own direction. The campaign was over. At least I thought it was. I hadn't yet learned that every withdrawal leaves ripples, and some battles follow you home. The insult still rang in the air. "You're not half the woman your sister is." Around me, time seemed to stall. A champagne bubble froze mid-rise. Someone cleared their throat, then thought better of it. Even Sam had gone quiet, eyes down, like a child witnessing something she couldn't fix. I'd been trained to stay still under fire. To observe first, act second. In combat, that meant lives. In this dining room, it meant dignity. So I didn't flinch. I didn't match her tone. I just spoke. My voice quiet and level, the way I did when issuing an order that couldn't be misunderstood. "Then maybe," I said, "she should be the one paying the mortgage on this house." The words cut through the air like a suppressed round. Soft, but absolute. A fork slipped from my father's hand, hitting the plate with a sharp metallic clink. My mother's face drained of color, her poise cracking like thin porcelain. Sam froze, her glass still raised halfway to her lips. Elaine tried to recover first. Her laugh came out brittle, high-pitched, desperate. "Well, now, who's ready for dessert? It's tiramisu tonight, isn't it?" I didn't move, didn't blink. "No," I said. That one word, short, flat, unyielding, pinned her back into her chair. The room was silent again. All eyes shifted toward me. Years of invisible humiliation had built to this moment, and I could feel the structure groaning under its own weight. I reached for my clutch, calm and deliberate. Inside, my phone waited, a weapon I'd been carrying for 4 years without realizing it. I unlocked it and scrolled to my Navy Federal Credit Union app. The blue and white logo reflected off my glass of untouched wine. "Let's review the operational history," I said, my tone as even as if I were delivering an after-action report at Camp Pendleton. Elaine's brow furrowed. "What are you—" "February 15th, 2021. I read aloud. Wire transfer, $2,500. Foreclosure prevention. You told me it was temporary. Across the table, someone shifted uncomfortably in their seat. I swiped again. March 2021, $200 for property taxes. April, $800 for a plumbing repair? May, $400 for a new roof. Charles sputtered. Maisie, that's private family business. Private? I said quietly. No, sir. Classified information gets handled through secure channels. I held the phone up, the faint glow illuminating my face. Is just data. Another swipe. June 2021, car transmission. July, back taxes. August, new insurance policy. 4 years, every month, every excuse. Sam's eyes darted between us, confusion giving way to something heavier. Elaine's composure faltered. Maisie, lower your voice. This is not appropriate. The truth doesn't need volume, I said. Only confirmation. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. I placed the phone on the table, screen still lit, transaction list glowing like a ledger of ghosts. Total, I said. $84,000. The number dropped into the silence like ordnance. Someone gasped. Charles went pale. Elaine reached for her wine glass with trembling fingers. Sam blinked, her expression caught between disbelief and dawning understanding. I leaned back slightly. Posture relaxed, the way I did after clearing a live fire range. That's the cost of keeping this roof over your heads, I continued, voice calm. Every dollar I sent was a piece of my future. Training courses declined, housing deferred, savings erased. Elaine shook her head, the denial automatic. That's not true. I interrupted her with the same authority I used in briefings. Ma'am, the record speaks for itself. Across the table, my father's voice cracked like old leather. Maisie, your mother didn't mean. She did, I said simply. She always does. Sam set down her glass, finally finding her voice. Wait, she whispered. You paid the mortgage? I turned toward her. Yes. Her eyes glistened, realization carving deep lines in her face. They told me you were struggling, that they were helping you. I gave a small, humorless smile. That's how you maintain control. Change the story and no one questions the power structure. Elaine slammed her napkin down. This is ridiculous. You're embarrassing yourself. Correction, I said, my voice steady. I'm clarifying the record. I looked around the table, at every relative who'd ever offered pity disguised as concern. You all believed I was the lost one, the career soldier wasting her potential. But here's the operational truth. While you toasted promotions and firm partnerships, my play soldier paychecks kept this house standing. Aunt Judith, the family's elder stateswoman, straightened slowly in her chair. Her gaze cut to Elaine, sharp as a gavel. Is that true? No answer came. Judith's jaw tightened. Then maybe it's time someone in this family learned the difference between service and selfishness. Her voice was low but final. Charles's hand trembled against his glass. Elaine's eyes darted toward the phone as if wishing it would vanish. Sam sat motionless beside me, her expression hollowed by truth. I gathered my phone, sliding it back into my clutch. I'm done funding silence, I said softly. The room remained frozen, a tableau of status dismantled by documentation. As I rose from my seat, chair legs scraping the hardwood, no one stopped me. For years I'd been their ghost, the invisible daughter they spoke over. Tonight they finally saw me. Not as a failure, but as the officer who'd kept their empire afloat. When I reached the doorway, I paused and looked back. Elaine sat rigid, color drained, eyes fixed on the table where my phone had glowed like a confession. For the record, I said quietly, that's 84,000 reasons to stop calling me half. And then I walked out, leaving their perfect dinner to collapse under the weight of its own lies. I didn't slam the door when I left that night. Marines don't retreat. We extract. But even as the air cooled on my skin outside, I knew this wasn't over. Truth detonates quietly at first. The real shockwave comes later. By dawn, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Missed calls, voicemails, texts threaded with disbelief, denial, and thinly veiled rage. Dad. Maisie, that was completely out of line. You embarrassed your mother in front of everyone. Mom, how could you do that to us? Family doesn't humiliate family. I didn't answer. A Marine learns to let noise burn out before moving in. But within a week, the counteroffensive began. Photos surfaced on social media. Elaine posing with Sam outside our house. A huge royal blue vinyl banner stretched across the porch. Congratulations, Sam, for saving the family home. It hit like shrapnel. The lie wasn't just whispered now. It was printed, laminated, hung for neighbors to see. I stared at the image on my phone, the caption under it. So proud of our girl for stepping up when it mattered most. My hands didn't shake. They should have. But this was no longer an ambush. It was escalation. They hadn't just denied my service. They'd rewritten the campaign. I took a slow breath. The kind I'd practiced during field evaluations. Assess, orient, act. They wanted a narrative war? Fine. I'd brief the room myself. The next weekend, the house buzzed again. Another party, another showcase. But this time, I wasn't a guest. I was mission command. The same familiar faces filled the space. Cousins, uncles, neighbors. The same laughter, a little forced now, underpinned by rumor. The banner still fluttered outside like a false citation pinned to an undeserving chest. When I stepped through the doorway, conversation dipped. Elaine froze mid-sentence. Charles tried to recover. Maisie, we weren't expecting... I set my briefcase on the sideboard. You should have been. Without asking, I walked to the TV mounted above the fireplace, plugged in my laptop. The HDMI cord clicked home like a magazine seating in a rifle. The screen flickered, black to gray, then white text appeared. Operation Family Support, a 48-month financial after-action review. A hush fell over the crowd. Before the celebration continues, I said, turning to face them, there's a correction to issue. The banner outside, it's inaccurate. This review will clarify. Elaine's smile froze in place. Maisie, please, this isn't... February 15th, 2021, I began, advancing the slide. Initial transfer, $2,500. Purpose, foreclosure prevention. March, $1,100 property tax shortfall. April, $1,800 plumbing failure. Bar graphs appeared, each column rising higher, a visual of dependency's growth. Across the room, my Aunt Judith squinted, adjusting her glasses. My cousin muttered something under his breath. Sam stood near the mantel, silent, pale. Next slide. Communications log. On the left, my mother's frantic texts. We're drowning, please help us. And on the right, their same-day Facebook posts from Hawaiian cruise decks and golf greens. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I presented. This pattern continued for 48 months. Total amount, $84,000. A murmur rippled through the guests. Charles shot up, face flushed. Maisie, enough. You've made your point. I turned slowly. Negative, sir. The record isn't complete. Final slide. A high-resolution photo of the banner outside. The projector's glow washed the room in cold blue. This image, I said, was posted publicly on multiple platforms, attributing the rescue of this house to someone uninvolved. It constitutes reputational fraud. Gasps. Chairs scraped. Elaine's face collapsed inward, her hands gripping the tablecloth. Sam stared at the screen, eyes wet. I didn't know, she whispered. They never told me. Judith rose to her feet. Charles, Elaine. Her tone carried the weight of rank. You owe this woman, your daughter, an apology. Elaine opened her mouth, but no sound came. Charles sank back down. Jaw clenched, eyes on the floor. I closed the laptop, silencing the projector. The matter is now documented. The truth stands. Whether you acknowledge it is your choice. I gathered my case, turned toward the door. Before stepping out, I paused. For years, I paid for peace. Tonight, I bought freedom. Outside, the evening air felt sharper, cleaner. Behind me, conversation erupted. Low, uneasy, shifting. The banner still fluttered in the porch light, but its message was dead on arrival. And as I walked to my car, I realized something I'd learned long ago in the field. Explosions are loud. But the silence after, that's when the real damage settles in. In the days following that night, silence spread like smoke. Not the peace I'd hoped for. This was the silence of wreckage, the kind that lingers after a blast when the dust is still too thick to breathe. No one called. No one texted. Not even to argue. For the first time in years, I wasn't being pulled into someone else's emergency. My phone stayed still on the nightstand. And that stillness, foreign, weightless, was its own kind of freedom. But peace after war always feels wrong at first. I caught myself expecting the next crisis call. The sobbing, the guilt, the manipulation. Instead, only quiet. My mind, trained to operate in chaos, didn't know what to do with it. I'd spent 4 years serving a front that wasn't mine. Now, the battle was over, and the battlefield was empty. At Camp Pendleton, I returned to routine. Formations, logistics briefings, supply audits, the machinery of order resumed. Yet everything felt sharper, clearer. I'd stopped shrinking into the background. My reports were precise, my posture unshakable. When I spoke, junior Marines listened differently. Maybe it was the way I carried silence now, like a shield instead of a wound. 6 months later, the Corps gave that silence a name: promotion. The day I pinned on Major, the Colonel shook my hand, firm and deliberate. Proud of you, Major Black, he said quietly, both in and out of uniform. Those words, simple, unceremonious, carried more validation than a lifetime of my mother's empty praise. Recognition rooted in merit, not manipulation. That night, my platoon surprised me with a beach cookout at Del Mar. No decorations, no speeches, just laughter, burgers, and the low hum of waves breaking against the dark. Someone strung a hand-painted banner between 2 palm trees. Congrats, Major Black, our family. It wasn't store-bought or perfect. The paint was uneven, the letters crooked, but it was real. Each brushstroke a quiet act of loyalty. Gunny Reyes raised a beer in my direction. We take care of our own, she said, but we don't burn for anyone else's light. Remember that. I nodded, the lesson now engraved deeper than any metal could mark. Weeks turned into months. My savings began to rebuild. Small victories measured not in thousands, but in autonomy. I met with a financial counselor on base who specialized in transition planning. For once, my money went toward my future, not their survival. In the evenings, I volunteered at the Veterans Resource Center near Oceanside. There, young Marines sat across from me, faces tight with the same sense of duty I once mistook for debt. I created a workshop called Operation Financial Independence, budgeting basics, VA benefits, boundary setting. But the final slide always was about loyalty. Duty ends where self-destruction begins. I told them the truth I'd bled to learn. Kindness without boundaries is just self-harm performed politely. Sometimes after class, a private would linger, eyes red, whispering, "Ma'am, my parents are doing the same thing." And I'd nod. Then start your audit today. Know your numbers. Know your worth. Months later, Sam called again. This time, her tone was different. Steady, thoughtful. "Maisie, she said. I talked to them. They admitted everything. I'm ashamed I didn't see it sooner. Her voice broke on the word ashamed. I didn't soften, but I didn't harden either. You see it now. That's enough. When she came to visit, we sat by the ocean, two sisters stripped of illusions. She told me about their new reality. The family's reputation shattered, their circle shrinking. They're still angry, she said quietly, but mostly at themselves. I stared out at the horizon, the endless line where sky met sea. Good, I said. They finally found someone their size to fight. We shared a quiet laugh, not out of cruelty, but relief. The truth had leveled the field. For years, I had mistaken obedience for honor. Now, I understood. True discipline isn't submission. It's alignment. It's knowing when to stand down and when to stand alone. I hadn't lost a family that night. I'd lost a chain of command that never saw me as equal. And as I stood on the pier, wind tugging at my hair, I realized something else. I wasn't half the woman my sister was. I was my own whole. A year has passed since the night I walked out of that dining room. The night silence became my ally instead of my sentence. In that year, I've learned that freedom rarely looks the way you imagine. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it arrives softly, like morning light through new blinds, touching everything it was once denied. I didn't call my parents again. Not because I wanted revenge, but because peace has prerequisites, and one of them is distance. They reached out once through a lawyer, offering what they called reconciliation. Their proposal? To add my name to the house deed, as if a legal document could erase 4 years of quiet theft. I sent one final letter in response. It was brief, written in the same tone I'd use for an after-action report. I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I do. Forgiveness is freedom, not permission. But my boundaries are final. Do not contact me again. It wasn't anger that guided the pen. It was clarity. They'd mistaken compliance for love and sacrifice for weakness. That illusion no longer held power over me. These days, I wake up to the sound of rain tapping the windows of my small condo outside Seattle. The city's rhythm suits me. Quiet, deliberate, full of room to think. My mornings start with black coffee and a balcony view of Mount Rainier, its peak dusted white like a sentinel guarding the horizon. I still rise early, still make my bed with military precision. Discipline, I've learned, doesn't belong to the core. It belongs to whoever keeps faith with themselves. My work now is in logistics. Still solving problems, still keeping systems running. But the stakes are my own. No more invisible wars fought for people who weaponized my loyalty. Every weekend, I drive down to the Tacoma Veterans Center to run a workshop I built from scratch, Operation Financial Independence. The room is small, the lighting harsh, but it's sacred ground. I teach young service members how to safeguard their futures, how to recognize when duty becomes debt, how to say no without guilt, how to track every transfer, every favor, every quiet bleed before it becomes a hemorrhage. When I tell them my story, I don't hide behind rank or pride. I tell it straight. And when I see the understanding dawn, that flicker of recognition in their eyes, I know the battle I fought wasn't wasted. Some wars aren't about winning ground. They're about reclaiming yourself. My sister visits often. She's rebuilding too. We talk about cases, about clients, about nothing at all. The tension is gone. We meet as equals now, not as rivals raised on comparison. She once asked me if I missed our parents. I told her the truth. I miss the idea of them, I said. But ideas can't love you back. The woman I was before, the one who paid for peace, no longer exists. In her place stands someone quieter, sharper, whole. I learned that the ultimate test of strength isn't endurance. It's the courage to stop being useful to people who only valued your silence, So if you've ever been told you're not enough, not strong enough, not successful enough, not half the person someone else is, remember this: worth doesn't need witnesses. It just needs truth. Have you ever seen someone underestimated until they proved everyone wrong? Tell me in the comments. I read every one of them. And if this story spoke to you, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more stories like this. Tales of quiet strength, earned respect, and the discipline it takes to walk away. We post a new story every day, each one a reminder that dignity isn't granted, it's defended.